I played through and beat Tunic around the time that it came out. At that point in time, I wasn't currently working on review videos, but I knew that one day I would find myself talking about it because it was something extraordinary. Admittedly, I found myself quickly comparing Tunic to the game Death's Door, a game I had previously played and reviewed. While they do share some similarities in combat and mechanics, I knew it wasn't correct to compare them directly since they are ultimately very different in style and tone. So, I made the difficult decision to hold off on reviewing Tunic because I wanted to approach it with a cleansed palate. After taking a very long break from reviewing games in general, I knew once I started back up, Tunic would be towards the top of my to-do list. That brings us to today's video. Obviously, I couldn't just coast on the memories I had from playing the game over a year ago, so I decided to play through Tunic once again to get a fresh look. While most games I review often don't get such special treatment, Tunic is a game I just can't look past and ignore. In the future, I may go back and take a second look at some of the games I've previously reviewed, especially since my approach and style have changed so drastically since then. But that's an entirely different topic altogether. Today is for Tunic. In Tunic, you play as an adorable little fox, who upon waking up on the shore, is thrust into an epic adventure. If it's not obvious from the aesthetic or gameplay on screen, Tunic is heavily inspired by the Legend of Zelda games. Even the simple structure of the game is evocative of Zelda games. Equipping our furry friend with a sword and shield, there being a plethora of interesting items to find and use, and of course, an adventure centered around finding 3 magical MacGuffins. While making the corresponding connections to Zelda may be obvious, there's another more prevalent elephant in the room that must be addressed when it comes to comparisons. Personally, I have a severe distaste for comparing games to Dark Souls, but even in Tunic's game category description on Steam has it listed as a Souls-like. Furthermore, the mechanics drawn from Dark Souls are quite obvious. You have refillable potions like an Estus flask, the save points both refill potions and respawn all enemies like a bonfire, and the game's story is extremely cryptic, and at times, even with the adorable protagonist and beautiful world, this game can be brutally difficult. Put in a less eloquent way, Tunic is Zelda mixed with Dark Souls and you're a fox. While the gameplay and structure are quickly recognizable by people familiar with the genre, exploring the world and cutting down any enemies that stand in your way, Tunic does something exceptional with how it communicates information to the player. Within Tunic, you find manual pages. Each of these pages are part of the game's instruction manual. This in-game manual is akin to a strategy guide that you would get from something like Ocarina of Time, filled with hints, maps, instructions, etc. While I won't be getting into what this means in terms of the world-breaking meta-narrative, the manual is the key component that sets Tunic apart from any game that falls into this genre. Simply put, through this device, the game itself becomes one giant puzzle. As you collect more pages, more information is revealed. It helps direct your goals, reveals game mechanics, and even shines a light on Tunic's numerous secrets. One of the key features of not only the manual, but the world as well, is the fact that most of the words communicated aren't in a common language. The world of Tunic, along with the manual, uses a language that has been dubbed Trunic by Tunic's loyal community. To be precise, Trunic is an alphabet that can be used in conjunction with the English alphabet to translate and decipher these cryptic messages to English. However, if you're like me, you'll play through Tunic thinking that this is just a made-up language with no key and will spend most of your time trying to glean information from the pictures and figuring it out yourself. Which, to be fair, I was able to complete the game by doing just that, and I believe that's how it's intended to be played. So, in reality, you neither need nor are expected to sit down with a one-to-one alphabet key and translate the entire manual. As you can imagine, having important information communicated in an ambiguous way can lead to getting lost or being confused. Most of the time, making the error of overlooking a detail will lead the player to miss out on extra content or secrets, but sometimes key information is hidden within these pages. I must confess that during my first playthrough, I hit a certain point where I had no idea where to go in order to proceed. I spent the next 3 or so hours retracing my steps and checking every nook and cranny I could to find the way forward, only to ultimately find out that I had the ability to proceed the entire time. I won't explicitly say what it was for the sake of spoilers, but there was a key mechanic explained in the manual that I just didn't fully understand, and using this mechanic is 100% necessary in order to play through the game. For this reason, I think Tunic will split players into 2 camps of people who absolutely love it and people who absolutely loathe it. It does not hold your hand whatsoever. You are dropped into the world without a clue, are forced to find the correct path, and figure out vague information. all the while fighting for your life every step of the way. Firstly, the combat alone is difficult. Sometimes there are groups of enemies who will overwhelm you, other times there are enemies who are just extremely quick and hit hard. This is only accentuated by the fact that our protagonist's range of attack feels very short at times. Personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with the combat, but that comes from the mentality of it feeling like a Dark Souls title, which makes me a bit more understanding. Sometimes our fox friend feels slow, gets locked into swinging animations, or gets its stamina broken. However, that seems to be by design. You aren't meant to just swing wildly at every foe, you need to take your time, learn the enemy's patterns, and strike when you can. Making mistakes, failing, dying, and trying again are all just steps in the journey to victory. I can firsthand relate to how frustrating it can be to get stomped by the same boss over and over again, but that just makes the eventual achievement of its defeat all the sweeter. Furthermore, Tunic never directly tells you what to do or where to go. In terms of finding the right path, there are hints littered throughout the manual, but never a quest marker that just directly lights up the correct course. As I mentioned earlier, I got lost for over 3 hours. It definitely frustrated me in the moment, and I imagine it could be a major turnoff for other players as well, but that lack of forced linear progression is exactly what creates the true sense of adventure. When the game developer takes their hands off of the allegorical wheel and allows players to make discoveries and even mistakes, the player finds a true sense of accomplishment. You didn't get that upgrade or find your way because some UI device spoon-fed it to you. You deciphered the clues, conducted your trek through the dangerous world, and achieved that victory all by yourself. Pride in your own abilities may be acquired by finding the correct path or that specific item you were hunting for, but it is ultimately sustained by the adversities you overcame in order to triumph. If you're like me at all, you'll want to hunt down everything you can in your journey to make yourself stronger or give yourself the highest chance of success. However, as I scurried through the world, I stumbled upon secret after secret that often left more questions than answers. In fact, there is a surprising amount of secrets within Tunic. The isometric camera allows for hidden passages, there are chests littered throughout the entire game, and there are even special mechanics and gimmicks that can only be found by studying the manual closely. Whether you're a completionist who loves to hunt every little artifact or collectible down to achieve 100%, or are someone who just loves the thrill of stumbling across information in a game where you thought you had everything figured out, Tunic is a masterpiece. I've said many times before that I'm not much of a completionist, but with how Tunic structures the way of finding the collectibles and other items, it truly does make me want to go and find every little piece this game has to offer. There were times where I had walked past a puzzle several times in my playthrough and never realized it. There were items that I'd pick up that I would not understand how they worked for hours. The sense of wonder and curiosity are palpable from the first step in your journey to the last. If you enjoy difficult combat, puzzles, and a mysterious world to explore, I genuinely believe that Tunic is a no-brainer to buy, especially if you're a fan of Zelda or Souls titles. With all of that said, I have to get into spoilers now, because there's just a few more things I have to get off my chest. Okay, to start us off, the mechanic I took forever to figure out and got stuck on was the praying mechanic. You have to stop moving and hold down the A button, which causes our fox to pray, which affects these pillars. These pillars open doors and bring power to objects. Praying also allows you to teleport to other golden pads. As you can imagine, having the ability to open up new areas and teleport to new places hindered my progress greatly. As for the rest of the spoiler section, I really have 2 things I want to discuss in general. First, I want to discuss the brilliance behind the Holy Cross puzzles, and second, a little bit about the narrative itself. The Holy Cross is a puzzle mechanic that while you're praying, you can then input directions on the D-pad. This affects the puzzles around you, such as these doors. This world is absolutely littered with these puzzles, from the obvious markings on the wall to the less obvious flower patterns on the ground. Some of these puzzles have items as a reward, but most of them release a fairy. Releasing at least 10 fairies is essential in order to get all of the manual pages, which in itself is essential to get the good ending of the game. Serious question to the people still watching, did some of you do this water reflection one? Honestly, I had to look it up because I have no idea how I was supposed to read and figure out the maze while it's spinning all over the wall. Anyways, these Holy Cross puzzles are one of my favorite parts of Tunic. Once I realized they're not as straightforward as just being carved on these doors, I found myself double checking any area that stood out. Anything that could even remotely look like a maze or was symmetrical made me stop, pray, and tap out a few directions on the D-pad. Finally, it is genuinely baffling to me that in order to achieve the final page needed for the manual, you have to unlock the door on top of the mountain. This, of course, only being able to be unlocked through deciphering a massive Holy Cross puzzle found with bits and pieces of lines throughout the rest of the manual. I genuinely cannot say enough about how this world was crafted in such a precise and specific way. After completing the game a second time, I watched a few videos discussing the secrets of Tunic, and I was blown away by how much more there is to this game than initially meets the eye. Out of all the secrets, the one that impressed me the most is that apparently certain music cues and trills can be translated through Tunic and have hidden messages. Even the music itself is a coded, decipherable puzzle. That is a level of creativity and layering that is severely underappreciated in today's gaming world. The videos I watched were made by the YouTube channel Rods Kaden, and I'll be linking his secrets video down below for those of you who are interested. They're great videos and have a lot of cool information, so definitely go check it out if you're a fan. The last thing that I want to talk about is something that I've been chewing on over my mind for a few days after beating Tunic. The game starts off fairly straightforward and immediately relates itself to the Zelda franchise. You see a damsel in distress. You must collect 3 things, and I immediately understood it as Link saving Zelda type situation. I spent the majority of the game thinking I was collecting these baubles to set the fox lady free, only to do so, then all of a sudden, she's straight up murdering me. I was so in shock and confused in this moment that I don't think I hit her a single time before she killed me. The thing that impresses me so much about this is that it was an extremely effective plot twist in a game where there's little to no dialogue or story. At least, not clearly communicated dialogue or story. That means for this to have been such an effective twist for me, it used my preconceived notions from other game experiences against me. Furthermore, it makes the fact that there are 2 different endings so monumentally important. I'm not going to get into the lore or try to explain the story here, mostly because I don't think I fully understand it, but I do want to point out how well the 2 endings are written. If you don't collect all the pages of the manual, you must fight the heir. For the record, I found this fight insanely hard, and then, of course, she had a second phase. Upon defeating her, you end up locked away in the same prison that you broke her free from. My initial understanding of this was that you were kind of putting her out of her eternal misery and taking her place, but either way, it definitely doesn't seem like a happy ending. The credits begin to roll and the world we once explored is shown now empty and quiet. At the end of the credits, it specifically reads "Game Over," and allows you to restart to gather the missing pages or to start a new game plus. However, if you manage to gather every page from the manual, when you reach the heir, you don't actually fight at all. You are prompted to instead to interact with her, and as she pulls down her sword, you offer up the completed manual to share with her. She begins to cry, something about the realization of wisdom found within the pages, and she is restored. The credits roll, this time our hero and the heir together, experiencing the beautiful world around them. Then, after the credits are done, it specifically reads, "The End." Between the puzzles, the difficult fights, and the emotionally charged endings, I genuinely feel like I went on an adventure. Obviously, games are meant to have fun, but oftentimes that can push past just being entertainment and evolve into something more. For me, Tunic is a work of art, both in how the puzzles and secrets are built, and how well the world's story is expertly crafted. Admittedly, at the end of it all, I still don't think I understand the story 100%, but I kind of like it that way. With a game so dependent on mystery, it's almost fitting to still have questions swirling around in the back of my head. Even with questions unanswered though, I can feel fully satisfied knowing that the journey came to the good, triumphant end.